Hi everyone, Dean Mannix here. Incredibly excited to be working with Warwick and the team at SunWiz to help you with your sales of solar. Now, obviously, there's a lot of tools that Warwick and the team are providing, and today I want to talk about the proposal template and the online solution for that, and some tips and some ideas around how you can use that to present more effectively and obviously convert more effectively. Now, I'm a believer that if you've got a two-stage sales process, that showing the customer what the proposal will look like in the first stage of the process is a great idea because it prepares them in the second stage of the process to make decisions. Now, some of you, in fact, many of you will have a one-stage sales process where you meet the client or talk to the client and you sell them or try to convert them in the first meeting. So don't worry about those solutions for yourselves. But the bottom line is, for all of you, there's some great ideas here for presenting more effectively and obviously converting more effectively. Now you'll notice the first, pretty much part of the template is the your story part of the template. Now that's very deliberate for a couple of reasons. One, it enables you to avoid going straight to the price of the system. The faster you get to the price of the actual system, the more the entire conversation will flow around how much is this going to cost me, and that will flow to, and how much does that cost compared to the cheaper solution somebody else showed me. So we really want to start the conversation off in a better way than that. A great place to start is with a story about your business, your philosophies, and why you're a better option than other cheap providers out there in the market. So obviously, you'll customize this to match your business and your strengths, and make sure you spend time doing that because there's a lot of value in getting that right from the start of the meeting. Now, the next part of the template is all around the design of the system. Why do we go here? Because this is where you, as a quality provider, can add significant value and also highlight all of the problems and issues with doing design and installation on the cheap. It also puts you in a place where you're genuinely consulting to the client about their house, the way it's going to look, the design of the system, the efficiency of the system, and just all of the things that you care about as a quality installer and quality provider of solar power. So the bottom line is, the more the conversation gets into depth around all the things that you're going to do to make sure that the design and the quality of installation is first class, the more they're going to realize that they should be paying a little bit more money for quality. So this is a great way to open up the conversation and make sure it's more consultative rather than price driven. Now, we do need to get to price at some point in time, and obviously, clients are going to want you to take them there. So this slide basically enables you to get into a high-level conversation about the pricing and really hit the key numbers that they need to understand and talk about. And so this is a nice, safe way into the money conversation without getting into too much detail. Focus on each of these individually and make sure that the customer absolutely understands the implications of each part of this chart. So once we've identified what the high levels of the financials are and of the system are, we want to now get into a bit more of a detailed conversation in relation to exactly what the cash flow implications will be for the customer. Now, a couple of tips here. You really need to make sure that the customer can draw the comparisons between the top bar, which is what they're currently paying, and then the bottom bar. You also want to make sure you talk about the top bar first. See, often it's better to remind them exactly how much they're paying and how much their power is costing them, how much it's increased over the last 10 years before getting into the conversation around savings. Then from a savings perspective, you need to compare black with black and say, so this is your power bill now, this is your power bill after. A great way to talk about the funding is, as you can see, this is fully funded from the savings on your power. So in effect, the money you're taking off the utility company is what's enabling you to pay for the solar. And then the green piece, just say, and overall, you're actually even better off despite paying for the solar system through funding. So most of your solutions are going to come out looking something like this and maybe even better, but that's a great idea just in relation to doing a proper comparison of the before and after of solar. Now, next we get into long-term savings, and I think the really big thing about this chart is it also enables you to get across a few key points. The first key point you want to get across is, can you see through that curve that you really start saving serious money from around about year 6 or 7 onward, and that your big savings and big earning is actually in year 10 through to 20. Now, if you can help the customer understand this, and even drawing a line from 10 through that blue line will enable them to understand it even better, that's going to set up a great conversation around the value of a quality warranty and getting a panel with a warranty that's either 15 years, 20 years, or 25 years. Because the more the customer can see that the longer the system's on the roof, the greater the savings going to be, the better. It also enables you to have a conversation around the fact that if the system only lasts 10 years, then they then miss out on the major savings that they could have and should have been making, and they have to start all over again with much smaller savings. So you can really use this chart to highlight the value of using a quality panel with a longer warranty if that's something you're selling. Now, next we get into the green implications or the sustainability implications and environmental implications of using solar. And my key tip here is don't just throw this down the customer's throat and don't brush over the top of it. You want this to be a conversation. And for a lot of people, making a commitment to the environment and the value of getting the solar system onto their roof could be the difference between converting today and no decision being made. So my suggestions here are, first, before you even get to this slide, ask them, look, from an environmental perspective, how important is that to you? How much do you really care about the energy savings and the environmental implications of putting the solar system on your roof? Now, if they say that really matters to them, that's a commitment that you can then use later on in the conversation. You could even ask a question before showing a slide like this and say, look, if we put the system on your roof tomorrow, what do you think the equivalent of planting trees in terms of saving the environment would be? Like, how many trees do you think that would be the equivalent of? Would it be 100 or more? Now, most people are going to come up with about 100. And if you can say, well, actually, if we put the solar system on the roof today, that's the equivalent in a year's time of planting 1,500 trees, then you've got an urgency point, you've got something you can use to close later on, and you've really highlighted just what the environmental impact is. So there's lots of different ways to play around with this, but the point is you should be using this as a tool to create greater levels of commitment, a real connection between you and the customer, and an opportunity for closing in a much more comfortable way further into the conversation. Now, you notice we haven't talked about equipment yet, because the equipment really shouldn't be that relevant until they've bought into, they want the savings, they want the environmental impact, they're happy with the numbers, then there's no point in talking about equipment. So that's one reason we haven't got here yet. Also, the sooner we get into equipment, the more likely it is that we're going to make things too complex, and the more complex things are, the less likely it is people will make a decision. So my suggestion is we do a soft close before talking about equipment and simply say, so look, the numbers stack up, don't they? Fantastic. And you're happy with the impact it's going to have on the environment? Great. Well, look, should we just go through the equipment so you know what we need to put on your roof to make this happen? So fundamentally, we want to softly close their intention to move forward before getting into the detail of the equipment. Then I suggest you actually say, look, obviously we're using quality equipment and I can get into the detail. How much detail would you like me to get into? Now, you might be surprised how many people say, oh, look, not too much, or oh, no, I'm really happy with what you're suggesting, and just are ready to move forward. But just test that first before getting into the detail. In terms of getting into detail, keep it light. Fundamentally, confirm it's a quality panel, compare it to a lower quality panel, make sure they understand any warranty differences or any construction differences that are relevant. If it's a branded panel, point out the fact that it's got a brand, because that's obviously a driver of purchasing. Explain why you've chosen that panel and that inverter and what level of quality you've gone in at, and then just explain that you believe it's the best value choice and the best value for money solution that you can provide, and ask them when they can put it on the roof. The bottom line is this should be a closing point in the conversation, and we want to try a close here before moving forward. So some of you might be saying, well, Dino, how do I actually close having presented the equipment? Well, this next slide is a great way to close. Basically, it's just next steps. So it gives you a real blow-by-blow strategy for just saying, look, so in terms of if we move forward and we want to get it on the roof, these are the next steps we have to execute. Explain each of these in a high level, and then just say, listen, so should we go ahead with that? It should be that simple. And the visual representation of the next steps creates a really good psychological and visual dynamic for suggesting we should be moving forward. So make sure you close on this slide, and you don't need to move forward if they say yes. Always remember, once they've said yes, stop selling. Now, what if the close is not successful? What if they say, I need to think about it, or they start asking questions, or they start throwing around concerns? Well, that's what the next session of the proposal is all about. So just understand this. Ideally, we close here. The next section and the section after are so that we can get a second bite of the cherry. So this is how this would flow. Fundamentally, you'd say, okay, great, I understand you need to think about it. I just want to clarify a few things before I go. I guess the first thing is that, these are our differences. This is what I'm selling. So if you are comparing me to somebody else, please remember this is the things that you should take into account when choosing us as a provider. So take them through those and discuss those. Then explain that fundamentally, this is what you'll enjoy about working with us, and this is what we pride ourselves on, and then move through to a couple of testimonials. Now, the beauty here is you can then say, look, would it make a difference if I could put you in contact with one of our happy clients and you could have a chat to them? Get into a conversation around how many happy clients you've got, how many testimonials you have, and then say, are you sure I can't get this on the roof, because I really want to help you with this? So this gives you a good opportunity to rebuild momentum, get back to a credible closing situation, and leverage the fact that other people are using you and are very happy with you as the reason for saying, are you sure we couldn't do this today? All right, great strategies. Just use those 3 slides to push you through into that second bite of the cherry, so to speak. So I know the next question many of you are asking is, well, okay, what happens if they say no the second time? Isn't that a bit uncomfortable? Well, we need a strategy for keeping the conversation moving forward and finishing on a strong point rather than a, no, I don't really want to do it and we both feel uncomfortable point. So the next group of slides is all about enabling you to do that. So you can simply switch out of this and say, look, I understand 100%. Look, just so you've got them, these are the detailed, this is the detailed information around exactly how we've calculated what power you'll generate throughout the year and where your peaks will be. Do you want to discuss this in any detail? It could get into a good conversation around exactly what their usage is, what's going on, their reasons for getting solar, and that may enable you to close again. If you don't get that opportunity, then you can move forward to it. And just so you understand, here's a comparison, a blow-by-blow comparison of our solutions and what I've recommended today. If you do get another solution from another provider, you can actually use this just to compare them. Then you can move through to, and look, we've even prepared a bit of a note with some ideas and some tips around how to compare different solar solutions, because whether you buy from me or not, I'm really committed to making sure that you buy a quality solution and don't get taken advantage of by one of the cheaper providers out there. So you can set up a good conversation around how to do comparisons using this slide. You can say we've even gone into a bit of detail and provided you with a checklist to make that easy. So just whatever you do, make sure that you get these 4 or 5 things confirmed before you sign anything, because this is really the minimum of what you'd expect. Now you'll customize these to match your strengths, but obviously you've got to create a dynamic where the customer goes, okay, I understand that what you're offering is the absolute minimum, and set yourself up so that anyone who can't tick those boxes basically gets knocked out of the race. There's some more aggressive strategies here that you can include and you can customize and you can play with that really enable you to get into a more detailed conversation around how to avoid those solar bandits out there. And I guess the big thing here is we really want to get into education mode so that it doesn't feel like we're pushing our solution down the customer's throat and pushing the way that we think about things down the customer's throat. It's just a process for educating them around how to avoid making bad choices and presenting this information as a really valuable tool for putting a bit more structure around comparing solutions and making a smarter choice. So this is why the tool's been built this way, and this is the natural flow that you should use. But remember that this conversation could highlight or create some opportunities where you can try to close just one more time. I'm a huge believer in the bottom line is that you really should open strong to close easy, and if you're having to close really hard around here, then this might not be the opportunity for you.